January 17, 2026, to 11 a.m. local time. The desert air outside the base at Al Udeid Air Base is cold, quiet, and strangely calm. Inside a dim operations tent, Captain Daniel, rays of the United States Air Force, stares at a glowing map projected across the wall. The Persian Gulf burns in red digital lines missile corridors, radar ranges, and targets deep inside Iran. He has flown combat missions before: Afghanistan, Syria, counter-terror raids no one ever hears about. But tonight is different. Tonight isn't a raid. Tonight is the opening hour of a war. Rays adjusts the collar of his flight suit. The patch on his shoulder reads 335th Fighter Squadron. Beneath it, the shape of the aircraft he flies, the F-15E Strike Eagle. Around him, pilots murmur quietly. No jokes, no bravado, just the low mechanical hum of computers and the distant howl of jet engines, warming in the darkness. A colonel steps forward. "Listen carefully," he says. His voice is calm, but the room tightens instantly. At 3 o'clock local time, the United States begins coordinated strikes on Iranian missile and radar infrastructure. He taps the map. This is Operation Sentinel Dawn. The screen shifts. Dozens of targets blink to life across the Iranian coast. Air defense batteries, naval installations, command bunkers. Primary objective, the colonel continues, neutralize anti-ship missile sites threatening Gulf shipping. Rays studies one blinking red icon along the coast near Bandar Abbas. That's his target. To radar installations guarding the entrance to the Strait of Hormuz. If they remain active, American ships in the Gulf become easy targets. Expect heavy resistance, the colonel says. Iranian air defenses are fully alert. Surface-to-air missiles confirmed operational. Someone in the room exhales slowly. Everyone knows what that means. This won't be like the wars of the past 20 years. Iran has real air defenses, real missiles, real pilots. The colonel finished with a sentence that lands like a hammer. Gentlemen, history will remember the next few hours. Outside, the desert wind rises. Rays walks toward the flight line. Rows of dark aircraft stretch into the night, sleek silhouettes under floodlights. Ground crews move like shadows around them. His jet waits near the edge of the runway. The canopy gleams faintly. A crew chief nods. "She's ready, Captain." Rays climbs the ladder, settling into the cockpit. He flips the first switch. The Strike Eagle comes alive with a low electronic growl. Across the base, more engines ignite. In less than an hour, dozens of American aircraft will launch toward Iran. Rays stares east through the canopy. Beyond the dark horizon lies the Persian Gulf and a country preparing for war. Then his radio crackles. A voice from command cuts through the silence. "Stand by. Possible missile launch detected from Iranian territory." Rays freezes. The war might have already begun. The cockpit of the F-15E Strike Eagle vibrates softly as Captain Daniel Rays runs through the final checks. Green indicators glow across the instrument panel. Fuel, weapons, navigation, all ready. Outside, the runway lights stretch into the black desert like a path into nothing. Then the radio explodes with urgency. Missile launch confirmed. Multiple launches detected from southern Iran. For a moment, no one speaks. Inside the cockpit, Rays feels his heartbeat thump against the tight straps of his harness. This wasn't supposed to happen yet. The strikes were meant to begin the war, but Iran just fired first. Another voice cuts in, calm, controlled, but unmistakably tense. Tracking. 8. No 12 ballistic missiles climbing. The radar display in front of Rays flickers to life with rising arcs. Each one represents thousands of pounds of steel and explosive moving at hypersonic speed. Projected targets. Gulf installations. Rays immediately knows what that means. Bases, ships, airfields. The war has already crossed the line. Across the ramp, engines roar louder as more aircraft come online. The air trembles with power. In the control tower, alarms echo across the base. Then the order comes. All strike aircraft launch immediately. Repeat, launch immediately. The timeline has collapsed. The carefully planned first strike is now a race. Rays pushes the throttle forward slightly as the crew chief signals from below. Ladder down, chocks removed. The jet begins rolling slowly toward the runway. As he taxis, the sky above the Persian Gulf glows faintly with distant flashes, tiny orange sparks on the horizon. Missile boosters. Somewhere across the water, Iranian launch crews are firing again. Strike 2, check in, a voice calls on the radio. Rays presses the transmit button. Strike 2 ready. Around him, the formation begins assembling for F-15E Strike Eagles, each carrying precision bombs, designed to destroy radar stations, buried deep in reinforced bunkers. But before they even cross the Gulf, they must survive the missiles already in the air. Ground radar operators begin calling out updates, tracking impact estimates. Bahrain, Kuwait, possible targets in Qatar. Reyes exhales slowly. If even one missile reaches the base behind him, hundreds of people could die before sunrise. The runway lights flare brighter. Strike 2, cleared for takeoff. The lead aircraft surges forward first, engines screaming into the desert night. Reyes lines up next. The cockpit shakes violently as he pushes the throttles to maximum. Twin engines roar. The jet lunges forward. Speed climbing. 60 knots. The desert rushes past in a blur. And somewhere above the Gulf, 12 ballistic missiles arc through the darkness toward American bases. At 170 knots, Reyes pulls back on the stick. The Strike Eagle lifts into the sky. Below him, the base shrinks rapidly into darkness. Ahead lies the Persian Gulf, and a nation already firing its first blows. Captain Daniel Reyes climbs through the black sky above the Persian Gulf, the twin engines of his F-15E Strike Eagle roaring behind him like thunder trapped in steel. Below, the Gulf is invisible, just an endless sheet of darkness. Ahead, faint lights flicker along the distant coast of Iran. The radar warning receiver is still screaming. A sharp electronic tone pulses in Reyes' headset. Enemy radar, tracking, searching, somewhere along the coast. Iranian air defense crews are already scanning the sky. Strike formation, tighten spacing. The squadron leader orders over the radio. For Strike Eagles shift subtly through the night. Their silhouettes invisible except to radar. Reyes glances down at the glowing tactical screen in his cockpit. A cluster of radar signals pulses near Bandar Abbas. Surface-to-air missile batteries. Exactly where intelligence predicted. His target, the radar station guarding the entrance to the Strait of Hormuz. If that system stays active, it can track American ships across half the Gulf. Destroying it is the first step of the war. But first, they have to reach it. The voice of Reyes' weapons systems officer, Lieutenant Mark Dalton, cuts through the tension. Danny, picking up multiple tracking radars. SA-series batteries most likely. Reyes nods instinctively, though Dalton sits behind him in the rear cockpit. Copy, Reyes says quietly. His eyes scan the horizon. Nothing but darkness. But radar doesn't need eyes. A sudden flash blooms far ahead along the Iranian coastline. Then another. Dalton reacts instantly. Missile launch. Reyes feels a cold wave pass through his chest. Two bright spakes rise from the ground like sparks climbing into the night sky. They grow brighter, faster. Surface-to-air missiles, heading our direction, Dalton says. The calm in his voice is practiced, but Reyes hears the tension beneath it. Break right, the squadron leader shouts. Reyes slams the control stick sideways. The Strike Eagle rolls sharply, pulling hard G-forces. Warning lights blink across the cockpit. Outside, the night sky spins violently. Then the missiles appear. Two streaks of fire tearing upward through the darkness, guided by radar. Hunting them, Reyes deploys countermeasures. Bright magnesium flares burst behind the aircraft like miniature suns. Electronic jamming pulses through the jet systems. The missile streaks closer, closer. The cockpit fills with the shrill tone of the radar warning system. Dalton watches the screen intensely. Still tracking. Reyes pulls harder, forcing the aircraft into a steep dive. The G-force crushes him into the seat. Sweat drips beneath his oxygen mask. For a terrifying second, the missile's glow fills the edge of his canopy. Then, the light suddenly veers away. The missile loses lock. It streaks past harmlessly into the darkness before detonating far behind them. Dalton exhales sharply. Missile defeated. Reyes doesn't celebrate, because on the radar screen, more launches appear. Captain Daniel Reyes steadies the F-15E Strike Eagle after the violent evasive maneuver. His breathing is slow but controlled inside the oxygen mask. Below them, the black waters of the Persian Gulf stretch endlessly toward the coastline of Iran. But now the real danger isn't coming from the ground. It's coming from the sky. Contact confirmed, Lieutenant Mark Dalton says from the back seat. His voice is tight. Multiple fast movers lifting off from near Bandar Abbas. Reyes glances down at the radar display. Four new signals streak westward across the screen. Fast, aggressive, intercept course. Fighters, Dalton confirms. Somewhere behind those radar signals are Iranian pilots, climbing into the same night sky, racing to stop the American strike package before it reaches the coast. Reyes adjusts the throttle. The engines respond instantly, pushing the jet faster through the darkness. Strike lead, Reyes says over the radio. We've got incoming company. The squadron leader responds immediately. Copy. Maintain heading. Escorts are inbound. Reyes knows what that means. Somewhere behind them, American air superiority fighters are already racing forward. Within minutes, the sky above the Gulf could become a battlefield. Dalton studies the radar more closely. They're spreading out, he mutters. Classic intercept pattern. Reyes imagines the pilots on the other side. Maybe young, maybe veterans, but tonight, they are defending their country's airspace, and he is flying directly into it. The distance closes rapidly. The radar signals grow stronger. Dalton suddenly stiffens. Danny, confirming aircraft type. A new symbol flashes on the radar screen. Iranian F-15E Tomcat. Reyes feels a surge of disbelief. The legendary aircraft once flown by the United States Navy decades ago. Iran kept them operational for years after the revolution. And now, those same jets are climbing to meet American aircraft in combat. Range 30 miles, Dalton reports. Too close. Reyes scans the dark horizon again. Still nothing visible, just empty night. But radar never lies. Escort fighters 10 minutes out, the squadron leader announces. 10 minutes. That's far too long. If the Iranian fighters close the distance first, the strike aircraft could be forced into a dogfight they were never meant to fight. Strike Eagles carry bombs, not air superiority missiles. Dalton suddenly leans forward slightly. Danny, new radar signal. Reyes feels the tension return instantly. What now? Dalton's voice lowers. Long-range radar tracking us from inland. A powerful search beam sweeps across their radar display. Reyes recognizes it immediately. A large early warning radar deep inside Iranian territory. That system can guide both missiles and interceptors, which means the entire Iranian air defense network now knows exactly where they are. The sky ahead remains pitch black, but suddenly, a tiny flash appears on the horizon. Then another. Dalton swallows. Danny. The sky above the Persian Gulf is no longer empty. It is alive with radar signals, missile trails, and the invisible tension of two air forces racing toward collision. Captain Daniel Reyes keeps the F-15E Strike Eagle low and fast, the dark water far below reflecting faint moonlight. The coastline of Iran grows closer with every passing second, but now the radar warning receiver erupts again. A new tone, louder, sharper. Dalton's voice follows instantly. Multiple launches, for missiles surface to air. On the radar screen, for bright streaks shoot upward from near Bandar Abbas. They climb with terrifying speed. Distance 20 miles and closing. Dalton calls. Reyes grips the control stick tighter. This time the missiles are guided by a stronger radar network, one tied directly into the coastal defense grid guarding the Strait of Hormuz. More accurate, more deadly. Strike lead breaking left. The squadron leader shouts. The formation explodes apart. For Strike Eagles scatter across the sky to confuse the incoming missiles. Reyes rolls hard to the right. The aircraft groans under the strain. Warning tones flash across the cockpit as the jet dives lower toward the Gulf. Altitude dropping. 2,000 feet. 1,500. The black water rushes closer beneath them. Dalton launches countermeasures. Flares burst behind the aircraft in blazing white arcs. Electronic jamming pulses through the aircraft's defensive systems. But the missiles keep coming. Still tracking. Dalton says. The glowing dots on the radar close rapidly. Reyes can almost imagine the Iranian radar operators watching the same screen from inside concrete bunkers along the coast. Two worlds, two crews, both fighting to survive the next 30 seconds. The cockpit vibrates violently as Reyes pulls the aircraft into a steep turn. G-forces crush his chest. For a moment, the edge of the missile's burning engine appears through the canopy, a streak of white fire cutting through the darkness. Too close, Reyes dives even lower. The Strike Eagle screams across the surface of the Gulf. Then, a blinding flash erupts behind them. One missile detonates prematurely in the flare cloud. Another streaks past the aircraft and disappears into the darkness. Dalton shouts over the radio. 2 missiles defeated, but his voice suddenly changes. Danny, 2 still active. The radar screen shows them closing fast. And just as Reyes prepares to dive again, a new voice suddenly cuts across the radio. Calm, confident. Strike package. This is Viper flight. Reyes looks up sharply. The voice continues. For F-22 Raptor entering the fight. Somewhere above the darkness, America's most advanced fighter jets have just arrived. But Dalton's next words bring the tension crashing back. Danny, the Iranian fighters are here too. And on the radar screen, 2 F-14 Tomcat signals suddenly lock directly onto Reyes' aircraft. The sky over the Gulf is about to explode into battle. The sky above the Persian Gulf has become a battlefield. Captain Daniel Reyes keeps the F-15E Strike Eagle skimming just above the dark water, engines screaming as he pushes the aircraft to maximum speed. Behind him, 2 surface-to-air missiles still hunt through the night, but the sky is no longer empty. A new radar signature suddenly slices across Dalton's display. Fast, stealthy, American. Viper flight has eyes on you, a calm voice announces over the radio. High above the strike package, 4 F-22 Raptor fighters descend silently into the combat zone. Their radar signatures barely exist, but their weapons are already active. Viper 1 engaging hostile fighters, the pilot says. Reyes glances at his radar screen. The two Iranian interceptors F-14 Tomcat are still closing fast from the east. They are powerful aircraft, designed decades ago for long-range interception, and tonight they are defending the skies of Iran. Dalton suddenly leans forward. Danny, one Tomcat has radar lock on us. The cockpit fills with a new warning tone. Higher pitched, more urgent, air-to-air missile tracking. Somewhere in the darkness ahead, an Iranian pilot has selected Reyes' aircraft as his target. Reyes feels the tension settle deep into his chest. Range, he asks quietly. 20 miles, Dalton replies. That's close enough. A few seconds later, the radar flashes again. Dalton's voice sharpens. Missile launch. Somewhere in the night sky, the Tomcat fires a long-range air-to-air missile. The weapon rockets toward them, guided by radar and closing at several times the speed of sound. Reyes instinctively banks hard. The Strike Eagle rolls sharply to the left, pulling into a steep defensive turn. The sky spins. Altitude warnings flash across the cockpit. They're still dangerously close to the surface of the Gulf. Above them, however, the battle is already unfolding. Fox 3. A voice shouts over the radio. One of the F-22 Raptors fires first. A stealth-launch missile streaks silently through the darkness toward the Iranian fighters. On Dalton's radar, one of the Tomcat signals suddenly begins turning violently, trying to escape, trying to survive. Reyes focuses on his own problem. The incoming missile. Dalton counts down. 10 seconds to intercept. Reyes deploys countermeasures again. Flares ignite. Electronic jamming floods the aircraft's defensive systems. Then, a brilliant flash tears across the sky above them. The missile explodes just off their right wing, rocked off course by the jamming. The blast shakes the Strike Eagle violently but misses. Dalton exhales sharply. Missile defeated, but the celebration lasts less than a second, because on the radar screen, one of the F-14 Tomcats suddenly disappears in a violent burst of static. Then a voice from Viper flight speaks again. Splash 1 bandit. One Iranian fighter has just been destroyed, but the second Tomcat is still there. The coastline of Iran rises out of the darkness like a shadowed wall. Captain Daniel Reyes guides the F-15E Strike Eagle toward land. The dark water of the Persian Gulf falling behind them. The city lights of Bandar Abbas glow faintly to the north, scattered across the coastline like distant embers. But beyond the lights lies something far more dangerous. Dalton zooms in on the targeting screen. There it is, he says. On the display, a hardened radar complex appears along the mountains overlooking the Strait of Hormuz, a long-range surveillance radar, missile control stations, reinforced bunkers buried into the rocky hills, the system that has been tracking every American aircraft in the region tonight. Destroying it will blind much of Iran's coastal defense network, but reaching it means flying directly through the final layer of Iranian air defenses. Dalton's voice tightens. Multiple SAM sites still active. The radar screen confirms it. Surface-to-air, missile batteries scattered across the hills surrounding the target. Reyes lowers the aircraft slightly as they cross the Iranian shoreline. Altitude, 500 feet. The Strike Eagle screams inland at nearly 600 miles per hour. The desert terrain rushes beneath them in dark waves of rock and sand. Then the radar warning receiver erupts again. A deep electronic pulse echoes in the cockpit. Dalton reacts instantly. They've got us. Ground radar from the mountain complex has locked onto the aircraft. Within seconds, bright flashes erupt across the hills ahead. Missile launches. 3 surface-to-air missiles ignite simultaneously, climbing like burning spears into the sky. They're coming up fast, Dalton warns. Reyes doesn't hesitate. He pushes the aircraft lower dangerously low. 300 feet. The terrain blurs beneath the cockpit. The missiles climb higher above them, guided by radar beams slicing through the night. Reyes banks sharply through a narrow valley between rocky hills. The Strike Eagle's wings pass frighteningly close to the terrain. The missiles try to adjust, but at this altitude, their guidance becomes unstable. Dalton deploys jamming again. Electronic signals pulse outward from the aircraft. Flares erupt behind them. 2 missiles lose lock and veer away, exploding harmlessly high above the valley. But one missile continues tracking. Still locked, still closing. Dalton counts down. 5 seconds. Reyes pulls the jet into an aggressive climb at the last possible moment. The missile streaks beneath them and detonates violently against the hillside below. The blast lights the valley like lightning. Reyes levels the aircraft again. Directly ahead, the radar complex appears. Huge rotating radar dishes spinning slowly above reinforced bunkers. Searchlights begin sweeping the sky. Dalton locks the targeting system onto the primary radar tower. Target acquired. Ray steadies the aircraft. The bombs beneath their wings are ready. One strike, one chance. The valley explodes with light. Captain Daniel Reyes has already released the bombs from the F-15E Strike Eagle, but the aircraft is still deep inside the air defenses guarding the Strait of Hormuz. Below them, the radar complex spreads across the mountainside, rotating ditches, hardened bunkers, and missile launchers that have been guiding Iran's defenses all night. And now one final missile is racing straight toward them. Missile tracking. Lieutenant Mark Dalton shouts. The radar warning receiver screams through the cockpit. This missile launched from the radar site itself. Short range, fast, deadly. Reyes slams the control stick to the left, forcing the Strike Eagle into a brutal climbing turn. The aircraft roars upward through the night sky, but the missile is already closing. Dalton watches the display intensely. 3 seconds to intercept. Below them, the bombs continue falling toward the radar, complex to precision-guided weapons designed to destroy hardened targets. The ground rises quickly in the cockpit window. The radar tower grows larger. Searchlights swing wildly across the sky as Iranian operators scramble below. Then the first bomb strikes. A blinding flash erupts across the mountain ridge. The primary radar dish shatters instantly, exploding in a storm of metal and fire. The second bomb slams into the control bunker seconds later. The explosion shakes the entire hillside. Flames ripple across the radar complex. The massive rotating antennas collapse, folding into the inferno. Dalton stares at the screen. Direct hit, but the missile chasing them hasn't disappeared. It streaks closer just meters behind the aircraft. Reyes dives hard toward the mountains again, forcing the jet into the darkness between two ridges. Flares ignite. Electronic jamming surges through the aircraft. For one terrifying moment, the missile continues following them. Then the guidance breaks. The missile veers sharply away and detonates against the rocky slope behind them. The blast sends a wave of fire rolling across the mountains. Reyes levels the aircraft, breathing heavily. Behind them, the radar complex burns. The entire defense network guarding the entrance to the Gulf has just been destroyed. Dalton checks the radar again. Slowly, the hostile tracking signals begin disappearing. Iran's coastal radar coverage is collapsing, but the war itself is only beginning. Reyes turns the aircraft west, back toward the Persian Gulf. The radio suddenly fills with new voices: pilots, commanders, ships across the region, reports of missile strikes, naval engagements, air battles spreading across the Gulf. The opening hours of the war are unfolding everywhere at once. Far below, the burning radar station near Bandar Abbas sends smoke spiraling into the night sky. Reyes glances once more at the horizon. More aircraft are already crossing the Gulf behind them. More strikes, more battles. Tonight was only the first blow.